Shalom to the elect of Israel, to the hopeful elect of Israel, you Hebrew Israelites, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, West Indians, and Haitians. Gotta give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah. The Most High, the Heavenly Father, his Hebrew name is Yahweh, not Yahweh, not Jehovah, not God, not Elohim, not Most High, not Lord, not Yah, not Jah, not Ahaya, not Allah. It's Yahweh. And his only begotten son name in the Hebrew is Yahweh Shah. Not Yahshua, not Yeshua, not Jesus Christos, not Jesus Christ, not Serapis Christos, not Yeshaya, not Yehoshua. It's Yahweh Shah. So got to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Rekah, Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and other bishops and elders of Great Millstone who rule well, who teach well. Who are the apostles and elders of all of Israel, whether accepted or not. And the sincere salutation to all the ark and pushing his truth and believing his truth toward the four ends of the earth. The entire world waking up the hopeful elect. And shalom to the Awath who are listening and learning. You few sisters who are listening and learning. I'm Isaiah from Jim Messaleno, kept coming at you another lesson in truth, facts, faith, and edification. Another daily edification. Lord, witness be edifying. So I titled this lesson News and Prophecy. Lord, witness be edifying. So this is copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips to balance in favor of fair use. So I got a few clips here. Let's get this one first. It's titled, Stop Saying the U.S. Dollar is Strong. Might be some infomercials. If it is, Salakia, just bear with me. So check this out. Let me turn this volume down.
Mark, hope your summer's going well.
Well, it's great to see you, Daniela. And that's probably the only time in my life I've ever had the word hot in my name used in the same sentence. So I really appreciate it. And it's great to see you again and really excited about the conversation.
Me too. A lot of ground to cover. Now, obviously, people watched our last interview. We focused a lot on crypto. And of course, I want to talk about that with you today. But first, I watched with great interest a few interviews you've been doing where you've, explaining beautifully what's going on with the Fed and what we can expect. One thing I want to start with you on today is that you say, stop comparing this inflation that we're living in to the 1970s. There's not going to be a Volcker-like style solution because there wasn't a solution back then. I want to start with this because this is a common misconception we often hear, and I'd love you to debunk it right here, right now.
No, let's go there because it is really amazing to hear people talk about, history rhyming, but not even pay attention to facts. The 1970s was such a very different period in just about every way. Demographically, we had a very young population in the United States coming into their peak spending years. You think about when you're growing up, right? 25 to 45, you're really not very productive the way productivity is measured. You're learning how to do your job, your function. You don't really have a lot of responsibility. You don't have a lot of income. You haven't started your family yet in many cases. So you don't spend as much. It's not until you reach that 45 to 65 period where peak demographics kick in. You have massive spending, 46 and a half as the maximum spending in your life. It's where you got the cars and the kids and the vacations and all the money's going out the door in college. And the other thing you have is a supply demand imbalance that can trigger inflation. And that's what happened in the 70s. We had a supply disruption in oil, prices went up, and you started to see some inflation. And then you had the problem that Volcker gets credit for. Mm-hmm. But when you actually, again, look at the data, you kind of like, wait a second, this is not a good thing. So the way they measured CPI included mortgage prices, interest rates, and house prices. So as house prices started to go up, as more boomers, my cohort, started to buy houses, then interest rates started to rise. So he decided, I'm going to raise interest rates. Well, but it fed into the CPI. So every time he raised rates, the CPI went up, which meant he thought he had to raise more. And it was this cascading effect until, quote unquote, he broke the back of inflation when rates were 20%. And all he did is plunge us into a back-to-back recession in 81 and 83. And people are like, well, that's a good thing somehow. So that's the first thing that isn't the same. Second is demographically today, we don't have demand pull inflation.
Right.
The aging population is downsizing, spending less. The echo boomers are not old enough to be in peak spending yet. So we have massive attrition from workforce population, no workforce population growth. There's no demand pull inflation. What we have is currency devaluation. Mm-hmm. The Fed printed 50% of all the money that's existed in the history of our republic. Think about this, 256 years, half of the money in the past 24 months.
Insanity.
That's what we're seeing. Like, I live in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Housing prices went up 40% in the last 12 months. Did my house grow? Did it get more efficient? No, it actually wore out. I actually had to put money into it to keep its value. What happened is the currency we value it in, the dollar, went down a lot. It was, oh, no, the dollar's strong. Right. No, it's not. You're looking at DXY. DXY compares the US dollar to the yen and the euro and a couple other things. And the fact that the yen and the euro are even more toilet paper than the dollar doesn't make the dollar strong. The dollar versus the renminbi over the last 2 years is flat to down a little bit. The renminbi is the ascendant currency. The dollar is in decline. It's been the world reserve currency for 70 plus years, but that's rapidly coming to an end. So anyway, more than you wanted for that answer. But it is really interesting how people think, oh, well, we're in the 1970s because oil prices rose. No, oil prices rose because of ridiculous policies by governments to lock people in their homes in response to the flu. That's why oil prices went up.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack here. There's a lot, and I'm excited. Okay, let's just, before we move on from the Fed, you say they didn't create the inflation. They also can't stop the inflation, right? Like, how much can they possibly raise to do this? So how does this play out for you? We're over 9% as we're speaking right now. What are the next steps? How do you see this going on, and for how long?
Now, Danielle, that's a great point. So think about where the quote unquote inflation came from. About half of it was oil prices. Oil prices went from $40. Okay, during the lockdown, they troughed around $40. In fact, they went negative for a couple of weeks, but that's because Saudi flooded the market right into the teeth of the downturn. Maybe they actually even had knowledge that it was coming. And they flooded the market. They bought up all the storage in Houston and created this negative price of oil in April of 2020. And then from $40, oil goes to $100, and quote unquote, that's inflation. No, it was $100 before the lockdowns, and it's $100 after the lockdowns. That's not inflation, but it counts as CPI inflation. The other part of it was used car prices. Used car prices went crazy because automakers couldn't get chips to make new cars. Well, why couldn't they get chips? Because again, the world did this stupid, idiotic, maybe one of the dumbest policy decisions in the history of mankind, which is a big statement, I know. And I'm prone to hyperbole, but this might go down as when you destroy economies over a respiratory virus that we've been living with for thousands of years, makes no sense. But maybe it does make sense if your goal is different than defeating the virus. Maybe it's not about the virus. Maybe it's about control. Maybe it's about money. Maybe it's about power. Maybe it's about dictatorships. More on that later. So what happened is most of the CPI increase that is in the past, right? It's already happened. Okay. Oil has now gone from 120 back to 100, and used car prices have fallen 30%. So we're on the backside of the CPI increase. But that's not inflation. How many interest rate hikes are going to solve the chip shortage? How many interest rate hikes are going to open up Chinese ports because of their idiotic zero COVID policy? So we can get containers in there to fill up and come back to fix supply chains. How many interest rate hikes are going to change the price of natural gas going into Europe from Russia? No amount of interest rate hikes can do any of those things. Look at European inflation. All of it, all of the European inflation is gas prices. All of it. And gas prices are because Russia has, we give you most of your gas. You want to sanction us. You want to seize our assets out of thin air.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, guess what? We'll just charge you more for gas. Or even better, we'll threaten to cut off the gas. And then what happens to price? So the Fed can't control any of that. And so the Fed, I believe, is simply trying to reload the gun, meaning put some interest rate hikes on so that when they acknowledge that we're in a recession, we're in a recession right now, right? First quarter was negative, second quarter's negative. We're in a recession. And if they turn it into the Great Depression by over tightening, because that's how the Great Recession turned into the Great Depression back in the 20s, in the 30s, is by taking liquidity out of the system. Economies need liquidity. And when you take liquidity out, bad things happen. So I think the Fed's making big policy mistake. We'll see how it plays out. But I think they will start cutting before people expect, sometime probably in the fall.
Well, when you hear talk,
Probably
then
right around election time, Danielle.
right, always the case. But when you hear talk of now 100 basis points on the table, what does Mark Yusko think?
I think it's a lot of bluster, right? Again, I think the policy mistake was leaving interest rates at zero, right? Emergency levels when there was no emergency. Back in 2009, there was an emergency. We had the global financial crisis. Cutting rates to zero made sense. By 2013, we were recovered, but we kept interest rates at zero. But why did we keep interest rates at zero? Now, I have a question. Daniel, have you ever borrowed at Fed funds? I haven't. I never get to borrow at Fed funds. I have to borrow at prime or at a credit card rate or at a mortgage rate. Who
That's
borrows
right.
at Fed funds? The banks. Well, why do the banks get to borrow at Fed funds? Well, here's what they do. The Treasury in the United States and other places, US, Europe, and Japan, has this problem. Massive amounts of debt. Massive amounts of debt. They can't pay it back, right? If you taxed all the wealth in the United States, you couldn't pay back the debt. You can't restructure it because no one would take the other side. Well, in fact, the Japanese and the Chinese are selling US Treasuries. You can't default on it because, then if you're a politician, you lose your job. So what do? You devalue it. So what do you do? You print more money to devalue the debt. But the real problem is all of that debt is causing this incessant desire to keep interest rates really low because the only buyers of debt have been the banks and the central banks. And so here's what they do. The banks borrow from the central banks at zero, and then they buy treasuries at 2-3%, and they lock those in. They lever them up 11 or 12 times and have a riskless trade. Think about that. JP Morgan had 0 negative trading days last year. How is that possible? Who could be that perfect at trading? Well, they're not trading. They're arbitraging. They're borrowing at zero and buying treasuries. Riskless trade. So that was refortifying the balance sheets of the banks that had been destroyed in global financial crisis. So they kept that on too long because it was really good. The Fed was happy, the banks were happy, the executives were happy, the management teams were happy. And then they passed crazy tax legislation to basically say, you large companies, we'll cut your taxes if you do this. How about you buy back your own stock and increase the price of the stock, even though your earnings are flat? And then the people at the top get really rich. So what's happened over the last, really since 1913 and really exacerbated since the global financial crisis, is there's been this giant sucking sound. And that's not jobs going to Mexico. That is the money being sucked up from the middle class and the masses to the very tippy top. Not even the 1%, the 0.1%.
And that's called a pyramid scheme. When the money gets sucked from the low and the middle class to the top, that's called a pyramid scheme. And they created these FRN notes as a Ponzi scheme, man.
And that is the job of the Fed. Everyone thinks the Fed is price
If you
stability.
ever saw the video on YouTube, you can put it up. It's called Economic Hitmen. How they loan money to these countries that they know they can't pay back, man. They give them these loans and these high interest rates that they know they can't pay back. These FRNs have been a Ponzi scheme from the beginning, man.
And job. No. The job of the Fed is to steal money from the masses and give it to the people at the top through this thing we call inflation.
See,
Inflation.
It's a Ponzi scheme, man. I did a lesson on it. I did a lesson on my backup channel because when I put it on my main channel, they in the middle of the video, in the middle of the live screen, they clipped the video, man. It gave me a strike, man. So when I put it on the backup channel, they didn't even take it down. It's still up on my backup channel. These devils, man, because they don't want people understanding. And the lesson was about how money really works. It's on YouTube, but when I did a lesson on it, they took the video down.
Inflation is a hoax. There's no reason that prices
Hold on,
should
he said
go up.
what?
Buy back your own stock and increase the price of the stock, even though your earnings are flat. And then the people at the top get really rich. So what's happened over the last, really since 1913 and really exacerbated since the global financial crisis, is there's been this giant sucking sound. And that's not jobs going to Mexico. That is the money being sucked up from the middle class and the masses to the very tippy top, not even the 1%, the 0.1%. And that is the job of the Fed. Everyone thinks the Fed is price stability and job. No. The job of the Fed is to steal money from the masses and give it to the people at the top through this thing we call inflation. Inflation is a hoax. There's no reason that prices should go up. From 1776, when we formed the Republic, to 1913, the price of a dollar was $1. Now, why do we even call it $1? Oh, well, because we borrowed the idea from the Netherlands, from the Rothschild family. The Rothschilds run everything in the world, and they called it the dollar in the Bank of the Dutch National Bank. So we took the dollar, called it the dollar, and from 1776 to 1913, the dollar was worth $1. There was no inflation because we didn't have a central bank to create money out of thin air. Since 1913, as Jay Leno quipped, I heard they were going to make a dollar coin. Well, they already have one. It's called a nickel. So we turned $1 into 5 cents over the last 100 plus years. And so this constant theft, and inflation is theft, as is taxation, this constant theft of wealth from the average person to the elites is the plan. And the more people try to subvert attention away from that and focus on things like inflation and lockdowns and all these other crazy policies, they're missing the primary objective, which is the average person's quality of life is going down.
Absolutely.
Right? We have the widest income and wealth inequality in the history of mankind. Right? It's never been worse. Now people say, oh, but we've taken all these people out of poverty. True. We took them out of abject poverty and we put them in a class where they have to be solely dependent on the government through handouts. Right? What did they just do in Canada? They just sent people money. Why did they send them money? Well, so they would vote for the people that, if you asked them, they'd say, well, I hate these guys. Well, then why do you vote for them? Well, because I want to get my free money. And that has been the dictator playbook since the beginning of time.
That's exactly what happened. I was going to say, but you mean to tell me, Mark, that the Fed doesn't care about us mere mortal common folk? Insanity.
And that's why I tell you in Job 20 and 22, in the fullness of his sufficiency, he shall be in straits. Every hand of the wicked shall come upon him. Right? Let's get this real quick. Every hand of the wicked shall be upon him. And these wicked that it's talking about, this is the common folk, man. The middle class, the lower class, the laborers, man. So real quick, let's get it here in the blue letter. Look this word up real quick. So let's say the wicked H6001. Let's play it here.
Strong's H6001.
It's a
male. A male.
It's a laborer sufferer, wretched one, laborer, workman, sufferer. Those that's working, man. Okay? So they taken from the common folk, man. And that's why you see all these nations, man. Everybody, these YouTubers, these Job 924 YouTubers, everybody's pissed off because the money going to the top, man. This is James 5:1. It reads, "Go to now, ye rich man, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you, because every hand of the labor is going to be on these devils, man. Your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them, because they have heaped so much, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as it were fire. Ye have heaped treasures together for the last days." Here is the point. Verse 4 showing you in Job 20:22, when it's the word wicked mean laborers, it said, "Behold, the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which is of you kept back by fraud, crieth, and the cries of them which have reaped and enter into the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth," man. You see, you have lived in pleasure on the earth and been wanton. Ye have nourished your hearts as in the days of slaughter. You have condemned and killed the just, and he doeth not resist you. So these devils, man. So not all the hands of the wicked or the laborers gonna be on these devils, man.
I know. It's a harsh reality, but look, the banksters, as I like to refer to them,
Yeah.
they're going to do what they do best, which is to steal. And look, this has been a good run for 800 years. You know, your forefathers, maybe the benevolent, not so benevolent Medicis, right, invented this. So for years and years and years, I lent you money, and I wrote down in my book, right, that Daniela owes me some money.
Yeah.
And you had to trust me, right? You had to trust me that I wrote down the right amount. Because what if I gave you $100 and I wrote down 200 and you brought back the 100 plus interest? And I said, "Oh, no, Danielle, it says 200. You're like, no, I only borrowed 100. Not according to the ledger. So the Medicis came along in the 1200s and said, okay, we'll borrow this idea, steal this idea from this brother, and we'll create dual entry accounting. And we, the benevolent Medicis, Daniela, you keep a ledger, Mark, you keep a ledger, and we will arbitrate who has the right number for a small fee." Okay, so fine. So for 800 years, that's been a pretty good system until 2009, when Satoshi Nakamoto, whoever he, she, they are, came along and said, "Well, we don't need you, Medicis and Rothschilds and JP Morgans anymore. We, software, code, can determine truth. So we don't need to trust each other anymore. We have truth. We know, based on the ledger, that I lent you $100, and that's truth in the ledger system. That is,
you see, that's the devil's system coming against the system, man. That's the Lord, though. Real quick, this is Proverbs 28:8. "He that by usury and unjust gain increaseth his riches." This is what they do. By usury and unjust gain increaseth his riches. He shall gather it for him that will pity the poor. So what they doing is they heaping up coals on their head, man. These devils. And inside their own system, their system is going against them, man. Because everybody tired of this devil. Man, you know how much student loans is out there in the world, man? Everybody got student loans, man. In debt up to their neck with student loans alone, man.
Bitcoin and ultimately other digital assets.
Before we move on from inflation, just one point you brought up about inflation being a hoax, because I read a great article about how it's almost like this self-manifestation we've created of inflation, where we keep talking about how inflation is, how everything is so expensive. So stores are preparing, they're increasing. So how much of this inflation, and I know it's a difficult question to answer, is really real? Really real?
Well,
or
it's real. It's a really, really important question. It's real in the sense that if you go to the grocery store, things cost more. Okay. But why is that? Is it because there's limited supply, right? And excess demand? In most cases, no. We have, in most cases, plenty of food. Although there's this interesting thing happening. There's these bunch of random accidents in food preparation plants and and processing plants all around the world, which is kind of weird. And then we have the attack on farmers, like passing rules that they have to do all organic stuff. I saw Russell Brand do a rant on that. And then you got the stuff going on in Ukraine with the breadbasket of Europe. So there's some funky stuff going on with food, but by and large, there's plenty of food, right? I marvel, Daniel. I live in a country, in the United States, where it amazes me, and this is one of my personal pet peeves, right? Our country spends $20 billion a year on weight loss, and yet we have millions of kids that go to bed hungry every night. How can that be? How can that be? We have plenty of calories, clearly, because people are consuming too many of them and need to pay to lose them. So how can that be? Well, that goes back to the few and the masses. People don't care about the masses.
That's why I say that herd that liveth in pleasure, man. Babylon the Great, and they don't care. And most of and it's a lot of their people. 60% of their people, man. That was one put in the media that it's so-called Negro, Latinos, Native Americans, West Indians, and Haitians. But 60% of the welfare, okay, the Section 8 HUD and Habitat housing and all this, it's these Edomites, man. It's these Edomites. Most of the people that's homeless in Babylon the Great is these Edomites, man. And they don't care about their own people. It tell you in Ecclesiastes 14 that he's not happy with his own portion, man. He's a nigger at his own table. He don't care about his own people, man. See, this is a Ponzi scheme. These are FRN notes, okay, is a Ponzi scheme, man. This is about the rich staying rich and the poor and the middle class and the poor being one, man. But it's all going to turn these devils' head, man. And yeah, like the brother said, they making their own tongue to fall upon themselves, man. The Lord doing it. It tell you matter of fact, let's read it. In Psalm 64 and 7, it reads, see, it's the Lord that's doing this. It say, but God shall shoot at them with an arrow. Suddenly shall they be wounded. So they shall make their own tongue to fall upon themselves. All that see them shall flee away. Because it tell you, right, Ecclesiastes 4, just read this. Ecclesiastes 4 and 16, it reads, there is no end of all the people, even of all that have been before them. So we know that the Edomites are still here, man. Prophets say they are going to rule the earth. The point is, they also that come after should not rejoice in him, because they catching hell too, man. And they got to pay for what their forefathers did, man, has done, man, in the earth. That's what the Lord is saying, Jeremiah, and Jeremiah was that 51 and 25. Let's read that. Their lineage is not, the Edomites is not rejoicing of these devils, man, because they are losing. Jeremiah 51 and 25. Behold, I am against thee, O destroying mountain, saith Yahweh, which destroyeth all the earth, and I will stretch out my hand upon thee and roll thee down from the rocks, and will make thee a burnt mountain. So his own nation is not rejoicing, man, because they on the bottom too. They catching hell too. That's why you got Glenn Beck and what's this guy name? Dabu 7. That's why you got the channel Redacted. That's why you got these guys, man. Okay, they losing too. They probably got a little bag. This guy here got a nice little bag, but they losing too, man. Why? Because of them that's at the top of the pyramid, man. It's a Ponzi scheme.
As long as they get enough for themselves, or maybe too much for themselves.
This fiat currency is a Ponzi scheme, man.
So I think the issue here is it's not demand pull inflation. Yeah. It's currency devaluation. And currency devaluation is different. The fact that something costs more because the dollar has been devalued is very different than inflation. It still gets counted the same as inflation or CPI. But the reality is it's kind of when, not to make it all about crypto, but when you talk about Bitcoin, right? 1 Bitcoin equals 1 Bitcoin, just like $1 equals $1. But we never talk about currencies in their own native state. We talk about them in some cross, right? We talk about dollar yen, dollar euro, dollar loonie. We don't talk about the dollar as a dollar. And same thing with Bitcoin. Bitcoin actually, right, has done exactly what you would expect it to do. The Fed printed 50% of all the dollars, And Bitcoin over that 2-year period is up 100%, went from 10,000 to 20,000. Now it's a little bit higher than that. Okay. That's exactly what it should have done, because it's not the Bitcoin changed. One Bitcoin, still one Bitcoin, but the currency went to 50 cents. 1 over 50 cents is 2. So it doubled. And so the Bitcoin per dollar went up, just like my house went up, not because the house got better, but because the currency I value it in got worse.
Want to talk a little bit more here about the US dollar, because you're right. We see the headlines. I'm a culprit as well. The narrative is, oh, the US dollar is so strong. But you're right. We're nowhere near the all-time highs. We are, yes, at a decade high, but it's just the strongest horse in the race, basically, right? So
well, it's the least weak of the major currencies.
But is this the narrative? I mean, is this the optics that the Fed wants to push, though, right? Because everyone's going around saying U.S. dollar strong, U.S. dollar strong, U.S. dollar strong. So we're believing this.
100%. And if you go back in time, this is amazing. It's all driven by WEF, and every year at WEF, the central bankers get together and they decide who's in the hot seat, right? Who has to be the strong currency this year? Is it the yen? Is it the euro? Is it the dollar? So last year, it was the yen. The yen was really strong. And I was like, why is the yen strong? Everything's bad. They have way too much debt. But the yen actually went from 100 to 100. From 108 down to almost parity, back to 100. I was like, that's weird. How could that be? Well, it was their turn to be in the hot box, because if you are a country that relies on exporting, that's all of Europe, right? They rely on exporting to China. If you're the US, you now rely on exporting goods to the rest of the world, because we produce a lot of oil along with Saudi. And if you think about it, what you want to be is a currency manipulator. You want your currency to go down so your goods are cheaper around the world. Now, if you want to consume more, if you want to buy things, you want your currency to be strong. So really, Japan should want their currency to be very strong, because they have to import a lot because they're an island nation. And China should want their currency to be very weak, because they supposedly are the manufacturing powerhouse of the world. But here's the thing. That's 20 years ago narrative. 20 years ago, it was about made in China, right? Pick up anything. My friend, his daughter came to him, this was 10 years ago. He said, Daddy, I thought you said Santa Claus brings the presents. He's like, well, honey, he does. Why? He says,
that's fire, brother. I got to read that right now. That's fire. Ooh, that's fire. Naquan, Jeremiah 22:13. Woe to him that buildeth his house by unrighteousness, which is unjust gain and usury, and his chambers by wrong, that useth his neighbor's service without wages, and giveth him not for his work, man. And that's why I tell you in Haggai 2 and Haggai 1 that we should put our money into a bag with holes in it, man. Okay? And these devils, man, we supposed to get paid daily pay, man. Not weekly, not bi-weekly. Hey, the water, that was fire.
Well, why do they all say made in China? And so 20 years ago, it was about cheap goods, labor arbitrage, made in China. Today, it's about made for China. China took 700 million people out of abject poverty over 30 years and created the largest middle class in the world, bigger than the European and the US middle class put together. And that middle class now is the greatest consumptive force in the history of mankind. So what you want is to sell stuff to them. So what's Russia doing? Selling them stuff. What is India doing? Selling them stuff. What is Africa doing? Selling them stuff. What is China doing? Bringing it all in. And their currency is gradually strengthening. And so we sit in Washington and call China as a currency manipulator. You look in the mirror, right? When you point a finger, 3 pointing back at you. It's us. We,
right.
Again, it's like Pogo. You're too young to remember, but there was this cartoon when I was growing up called Pogo. And the guy used to say, we've seen the enemy, and he is us.
Right.
We are our own worst enemy. And all of this is interconnected. And so the reason the dollar narrative is that it's strong is if you tell people a lie often enough, some of them will actually believe it. Now, I would say if you say a lie over and over and over again as if it's the truth, it's still a lie. So it's a lie to say the dollar is strong. It's strong.
Hey, that's what. Hey, as Elder Salaki, as Elder Manat Zakbar say, you lied about the lies that you lied about, man. They lied about the lies that they lied about. This is Job chapter 20 and verse 18. It reads, that which he labored for shall he restore, and shall not swallow it down. According to his substance shall the restitution be, and he shall not rejoice therein, because he have oppressed and have forsaken the poor, because he have violently taken away a house which he buildeth not. Now I say that which he labored for shall he restore, and shall not swallow it down. According to his substance shall the restitution be. When you go to the law, right? This is in Exodus 21. Listen to this. Now these are the judgments which thou shalt set before them, the Israelites, if thou buy an Hebrew servant, no Salakia, it's 20. Hold on, no, 22. Listen to this. Exodus 20:21. This is about paying back restitution. If you steal something, if a man shall steal an ox or a sheep and kill it or sell it, he shall restore 5 oxen for an ox and 4 sheep for an sheep. Esau got a lot of restoring to do, man. If a thief be found breaking up and be smitten that he die, there shall no blood be shed for, right? Because he got put to death. For the sun shall be risen upon him, there shall be blood shed for him, for he shall make full restitution. If he have nothing, then he shall be sold for his theft. If the thief be certainly found in his hand alive, whether it be an ox or an ass or a sheep, he shall restore double. That's what the Lord said in Isaiah. It was Isaiah 60 or 61. We're going to have double, man. If a man calls a field, a vineyard, to be eaten, remember it say the grape gatherer cometh, will he not leave some gleaning grapes? No, Esau going, it said he will steal till he have enough. But Esau going to take till there's nothing left. So this is Exodus 20:25. If a man shall cause a field or vineyard to be eaten, and shall put in his beast, and shall feed in another man's field, of the best, it say of the best of his own field, and of the best of his own vineyard, shall he make restitution. If fire break out and catch in thorns, so that the sacks of corn or the standing corn or the field be consumed therewith, he that kindleth the fire shall surely make restitution. If a man shall deliver unto his neighbor money or stuff to keep, and it be stolen out of the man's house, if the theft be found, let him pay double. So this devil got to pay. He got a lot of paying back to do, man. Let's read again in Job. This devil got a lot to pay back, man. That's what the Lord say. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints, man. Waiting patiently, man. Job 20:18. That which he labored for shall he restore, and shall not swallow it down. According to his substance shall the restitution be. There's a law on it, man. And these devils got to pay for this, man.
Strong relative to the yen and relative to the euro, which are toilet paper. It's not strong versus gold. It's not strong versus Bitcoin. Other stores of value are better than a currency which can be created out of thin air.
In the past, you've said you wouldn't.
So that was the point on that. The video like 42 seconds. The guy, he going in on straight flame. But that was all I want. I want to make the point at the 25-minute mark. So I got another clip. I got a couple more clips that I want to play. Hey, because Babylon is falling, man. There is no healing this place, man. And it's these devils, it's these Edomites that's catching the hell, man. Jake catching it. But guess what? These things are falling upon them, man. That's why I say the end of their times shall come through them, man. So this is right here. Check this out. Maybe an infomercial in this, so Salaki if it is.
What are you gonna do when millions of people start to get victimized by starvation? Are you prepared to see famines emerging all across the globe? The skeptics that claim that we would find a way to muddle through the global food crisis somehow are just realizing that this is a much bigger problem we all imagined. Unpredictable extreme weather events are having an enormous impact on this year's food production. In 2023, there won't be enough food supplies for everyone on the planet, which means that hunger crises, shortages, and food insecurity will hit large parts of the global population and bring about unprecedented pain and despair to countless families around the world. And those issues are not exclusive to poorer nations. In today's video, we're going to expose that some of the same disasters that collapsed agricultural production in developing countries are also happening in the United States right now. But before moving on, please support us by leaving a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel so you can stay up to date with the most important news. While Americans worry about empty shelves, the World Health Organization is warning that millions of people in East Africa are under threat of starvation as drought, climate change, rising prices, and an ongoing civil conflict in...
And good for them, man. Good for them Hamites, man. All these devils have put their hands on the apple of the Lord's eye, and they got to pay for it, man. Of course, it's Jake over there. But good for them devils, man. The Lord said he was going to, in Leviticus 26 and 33, he was going to scatter us throughout the four corners of the earth, and he's going to send a sword after us. So, of course, when the Lord brings these calamities in these different countries, like when there be tsunamis and earthquakes, the Lord be at Jake, man. Heathens, it's just collateral damage and casualties of war, man. The Lord be at Jake, man. But good for them damn devils, man.
Northern Ethiopia are all contributing to worsening food insecurity. WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus highlighted that more than 50 million people are facing acute food insecurity in the region this year. Moreover, a new study published by the World Food Programme found that roughly 7 million children are suffering from malnourishment. And according to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, hundreds of thousands are leaving their homes in search of food or livelihoods. In Somalia, authorities are projecting that vegetable and grain production will decline by about 80% this year due to the abnormally dry weather. The current food security situation across the Horn of Africa is dire after 4 consecutive rainy seasons have failed, a climatic event not seen in at least 40 years or since the beginning of the satellite era. Chimemba David Puri of the Food and Agriculture Organization said in a report released on Wednesday, typically the Horn of Africa has 2 rainy seasons per year, but for the last 4 have been exceptionally dry. In some regions of Somalia, it has not rained in 2 years, Reuters reported. This meteorological drought has resulted in a loss of soil moisture, caused waterways to dry up, and has led to the death of millions of livestock, UN researchers noted. Forecasts suggest that the September to December rainy season could also fail. This would set the stage for an
Get away with a great deal at the Hyundai Getaway Sales Event. With new cars arriving daily, now's the time to get in.
Unprecedented 5-season drought. Even though authorities here in the U.S. don't seem at all too concerned about what's going on in Africa right now, they probably should, because conditions are starting to change here too. And American farmers and ranchers are also coping with the worst drought in the millennium, dwindling water supplies, inflation, and the liquidation of beef cow herds. The western half of the country is experiencing the most extreme mega drought in 1,200 years. Withering pastures, a wrecking feed harvest, and endangering a quintessential way of life for the nation's agricultural production.
And you know why? Because the Lord said it, man. This is Hosea chapter 4. Because who's in rulership, man? Let me read this first. Isaiah 24 and 5 reads, This is why these things is happening, man. Because who's in rulership? It don't matter what country it in, man. It's because who's in rulership, man. And we know who's in rulership. Them that you can't criticize. Isaiah 24:5. The earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they, who? Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, the so-called white nation, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, broken the everlasting covenant. Therefore have the curse devoured the earth. What curse? The Lord told Cain, the earth shall not yield its full strength unto thee. Okay? Therefore have the curse devoured the earth, and they that dwell therein are desolate. Therefore the inhabitants of the earth are burned, and few men left. The curse of the earth is these devils not letting the land rest for on the 7th year, man. Because the earth shall not yield its full strength to Esau, Edom, man. This is Hosea chapter 4:1. It reads, and it said he transgressed the laws. So because of they passing all these upside down laws in the earth, man, therefore the Lord is destroying this place. Hosea 4:1. Hear the word of Yahweh. That's how we know it's Esau, Edom. Is not he. That's who's in rulership, and he ain't done away with, vocab. This devil's still in power, man. Hear the word of your Hosea 4:1. Hear the word of Yahweh by Shai, ye children of Israel. See, this is talking to us, man. Understand what's going on, man. Take heed of what's going on and repent, man. For Yahweh have a controversy with the inhabitants of the land. Who are the inhabitants? Esau, Edom. Therefore the curse has devoured the earth, man. Isaiah 24, man. It's because of these devils. For Yahweh have a controversy with the inhabitants of the land, because there is no truth. It's these devils, man, that changed the ordinance of the Lord, man, that broken the everlasting covenant. Therefore, no truth is in the earth because of these devils who's in rulership. Because there is no truth, nor mercy, and they don't show us no mercy, man. That's another thing. That's why James 2:13 say, mercy rejoiceth against judgment, man. This devil don't show us no mercy, man. Because there is no truth, nor mercy, nor knowledge of God in the land. No, they telling you the God look like them. If it is a God, it look like them, man. Okay? No, man. It said no knowledge of God in the land. By swearing and lying and killing and stealing. What did Job 10:10 say? John 10:10, a thief cometh not but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. This is happening because of who's in rulership, man. By swearing and lying and killing and stealing. Not Jake doing it. Not Jake is the biggest swearer and the biggest liar and the biggest killer and the biggest thief and the ones of the worst of all that commit adultery, man. And it's part of the Transformers, man. It said by swearing and lying and killing and stealing and commit adultery, they break out in blood touching blood. Therefore, the land mourn, and everyone that dwelleth therein shall languish with the beasts of the field and with the fowls of heaven. Yeah, the fishes of the sea also shall be taken away. And we see this is happening, man. So all your lawful food, it said the beasts of the field, the fowls of heaven, they got a whole thing going on with chicken and turkey, man. Millions. Fish. They talking about cloning fish. Now they breeding salmon and eel together, man. You think you eating real salmon in these grocery stores, man? No, man. You're not eating no wild caught salmon. Don't be no fool, man.
Sizzling temperatures are forcing ranchers to make an agonizing decision: sell their cattle early for less money than they planned on, or hold on to their herds, pray for rain, risk losing everything. At this point, the rate at which cattle are being sold in the U.S. is simply unprecedented. According to The Hill, over the past couple of weeks, the national cattle sale rate jumped to 120% above 2021 levels. That's an average that conceals even higher frenzies of sales in some markets. The sales are playing out against the background of declining rains and falling levels of underground water in the massive Ogallala Aquifer, which stretches beneath much of the Great Plains and which the region's vast agricultural footprint, much of it devoted to protein-rich feeds for cattle, is steadily and irrevocably soaking up, the article highlights.
Beautiful. I gotta read the brother precept, man. Fire, man. Fire. Beyond Yasha'Allah. Ezekiel 14:13. Son of man, when the land sinneth against me by transgression grievously, then will I stretch out my hand upon it and will break the staff of bread thereof, and will send famine upon it and will cut off man and beast from it. This is what's happening, man. Because of who? These devils, man. These devils gotta go, man. They gotta go, man.
Highlighted. We'll keep selling cows until it rains, said Texas High Plains rancher Jim Ferguson. The lack of water in general, it's hurting us all the way around, in any way you can think of, added cattle buyer Josh Sturgeon, noting that many farmers are even selling off their breeding stock, which they rely on to produce the next generation of cows. That's a big...
Bro, that's how... Bro, in the ancient time, bro, this is how you had money. Of course, you had land, right? Real gold and silver. But it's about your breeding stock, man. Now they got to sell their breeding stock. It's bad, man. It's bad for you got to sell your breeding stocks, man. These are the animals in the ancient time you had when you bred animals with no blemish. Lambs, right? Ox. No blemishes, man. Because those are the animals, the first ones was the one with no blemish that you had to sacrifice to the Lord for blessing your cattle, for blessing your crops, for blessing your lands. Now they got to sell off their breeding stock. That's heavy, man. That's heavy, man. That is crazy.
Signal to me that future supplies are gonna run tight, he continued. At the moment, beef prices are soaring, and many households are cutting back on meat and seeking cheaper alternatives. In the short term, all of the cattle that are being slaughtered right now will help to control prices. But the outlook for 2023 is quite bleak, considering that the national cattle herd just keeps getting smaller and smaller.
Hey, shalom to all the Acumen Outwaf on the comment board. Shalom to all for tuning in. Yahweh Shema B'Shah Barakathon.
In fact, some beef producers are saying that ground beef prices could top $50 per pound next year. Thanks to the highest inflation in a generation, average ground beef prices are already about twice what they were in 2019.
Man.
Estimates reported by Z94 News show that...
Why is Aaron happy? Well,
These
just days
devils
ago,
gotta
his
go,
old wheels
man.
gave out.
I'm so sick of this place, man.
Show
Sick
that
of
in
seeing these
2021,
devils, man.
it costs $200 to feed and raise a cow.
Wow.
That would typically have a market value of $600. Imagine what the value will have to be when 2022's herds hit the same market, seeking the same profit margin. If it costs $400 to feed and raise that same cow today, it'll need to fetch a finished price in a fair comparison, because each...
Bro, and then, bro, these cows supposed to eat grass, man. Grass. Why is they feeding them corn? Then they got, man, bro, it's a video on YouTube when they show you how they got to cut the cows open, cut the cows because they getting boils on them or whatever, and they got this whole little tube that run through the cow. They lance the cow, put a tube in where they can stick their hand in the cow and turn the corn in their stomachs because the cows ain't digesting the corn, man. Man, these devils gotta go, man.
Each farm and ranch in America is a small business that must profit to survive or cease to exist, the paper noted. Imagine how many American families will be unable to afford ground beef when prices jump to $50 per pound. If even the cheapest meat cuts are seeing massive price hikes despite the recent supply increase, we can expect to pay significantly more expensive prices for a series of other products, given that supplies have been steadily shrinking. At this point, the ongoing drought is not only affecting food supply chains, but many other sectors of the economy. On Tuesday, The Wall Street Journal reported that the extreme weather is forcing cotton farmers to abandon millions of acres that have produced so little cotton that they're no longer worth harvesting. Farmers will harvest an estimated 7.13 million acres, abandoning approximately 5.35 million acres due to an ongoing drought hammering southern U.S. states, representing an estimated abandonment rate of 42.87%, according to the National Cotton Council of America, who based their analysis on the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, data. Now, this represents the smallest harvest by area since 1868, the report showed. The economic impacts of the cotton shortage are going to be felt in a variety of industries, with the ginning, warehousing, and milling industries that process cotton all being the most immediately affected. Cotton also accounts for 90% of the materials in denim goods, such as jeans, and shrinking supplies mean that U.S. consumers will be paying higher prices for clothing in 2023. Unless rain comes along, farmers will have to continue to abandon or destroy their crops in the months ahead. In California, the situation is creating a tomato shortage.
Bro, you see the cotton gin, bro? Who created this? Jake came up with this, man. Jake don't get no residuals from this, man. Jake created the cotton gin, man. Devils, man.
Abandon or destroy their crops in the months ahead. In California, the situation is creating a tomato shortage, with farmers abandoning fields as crops turn to dust amid a water crisis. The news came as Idaho farmers revealed that the next food insecurity problem that may impact Americans' eating habits could be an emerging potato shortage. According to Zero Hedge analysts, now there appears to be another issue. Tomato supplies are getting squeezed as the state's water reservoirs dry up. We desperately need rain and are getting to a point where we don't have inventory left to keep fulfilling the market demand. Mike Montner, head of the California Tomato Growers Association, told Bloomberg. It's real tough to grow a tomato crop right now, Montner continued, adding, on one side you have the drought impacting costs because you don't have enough water to grow all your acres, and then you have the farm inflation side of it, with fuel and fertilizer costs shooting up. Bloomberg noted that the value for a ton of
See, you shouldn't even need no fertilizer, man. If they would let the earth rejuvenate for a year, man, it replenishes the minerals in the soil, man. Abraham ain't need no damn fertilizer, man. Isaac and Jacob didn't need no fertilizer, man.
Tomatoes reached an all-time high this year of $105 due to high input prices, such as diesel and fertilizer, compounded with the drought. The experts said, you would think that it was a home run for growers, but in reality, the input costs have gone up so much that the potential profit was all gobbled up. Over the past 4 weeks, shows the price of tomatoes.
People love spaghetti, don't it? Especially the Italians, boy. What they gonna do? It's getting bad, man. It is the Lord doing this, man.
Tomato sauce jumped 17% from a year ago, while ketchup prices surged 23%. All tomato and potato-based products will experience sharp price increases as the crisis accelerates. Of course, the issues we've touched on in this video are just the tip of the iceberg. All around the planet, agricultural production is going to be way down this year, and we will be facing the repercussions of that decline in 2023.
Hey, and I said this Saturday at camp, hey, the Lord, you know what? When the Lord said in Joel 3, beat your plowshares in the swords and your pruning hooks in the spears to the other nations, what he telling Esau Edom do the same thing, man. Forget about producing food for your country. Get your missile defense system together, man. Hey, forget the food. Forget the food, man. Get them missiles together.
It goes without saying that we won't find a way to muddle through a global food crisis. If you have been a skeptic of reports of food shortages and famine, take a second look and reassess the problem once again, because the latest developments make it clear that things are getting out of control right now. We really are in the cusp of a devastating global crisis, and the coming months are going to be filled with despair. Thank you for watching this video.
It's getting real, man. It's the Lord. It's getting real out here, man. It's gonna get real. So let me get this. Let me read the brother precept real quick. This is from Adam 9 put up Ezekiel 5:16. It reads, "When I shall send upon them the evil arrows of famine, which shall be for their destruction, and which I will send to destroy you, and I will increase the famine upon you, and will break your staff of bread." And this is talking to Israelites, man. The Lord don't care about these heathens, man. Everybody else is collateral damage and casualties of war, man. This is Isaiah 3:1. It reads, "For behold, the Lord, Yahweh Shema Shah of hosts, doeth take away from Jerusalem and from Judah the stay and the staff, the whole stay of bread and the whole stay of water." He's taking it away, man. It's the Lord that's doing this. It ain't these devils. It's the Lord, man. And that's the scary thing about it, man. The Lord is doing this. So I want to play this too. This is from this chick, what her name is, Dina Amita Cal, however she pronounce her name. But check this out. It said, on the brink of World War III with Russia, US, NATO, Venezuela, China, Taiwan, Japan, South and North Korea, Iran, and Israel. Check this out.
Have so many headlines to talk about today in regards to the prophecy, wars and rumors of wars. So I'm going to do my best to bring you as many headlines as I can in the time allotted for this show. And so with that said, let's start with Russia. It is being reported that Russia is holding war games in Venezuela, which of course is sending alarm signals throughout Latin America. The international war games have been held yearly since 2015, and Venezuela has participated from its beginning. But this year's games are the first held in Latin America and include participants from Cuba, Bolivia, and Nicaragua, forces from Burma, Belarus, China, India, Pakistan, and Indonesia, among others, also participate in the competitions. It goes on further to report that although the numbers of soldiers present in Venezuela have not been disclosed, experts estimate that they could add up to hundreds of troops, given that in previous war games, countries participating near 30. The competitions, which in the past have tested detachments of tanks, artillery, and amphibious operations, are scheduled to last until August 27th and show the willingness of Venezuela's regime to turn it into a platform for a series of anti-American activities. Finally, it reports that Venezuela's relationship with Russia is already extensive, and the games seek to expand it further. By holding these games in Venezuela, Russia is telling the United States that I can almost come to your backyard. You want to go into the Baltic countries in Ukraine and in the geohistorical spaces of Russia? Well, I also get into your spaces. And that was a quote from Perez Villalobos. And I hope I pronounced that right, but there you have it. If we're going to go into Russia's backyard, they're going to come into our backyard and play these games with our enemies, aka Venezuela. In the meanwhile, Russian Deputy Foreign Minister stated on Friday that statements from Ukrainian officials about striking facilities in Crimea mark an escalation of the conflict openly encouraged by the U.S. and its NATO allies. He said that Russian officials had warned the U.S. against such actions in phone calls with high-level members of the Biden administration, adding that deep and open U.S. involvement in the war in Ukraine effectively puts the U.S. on the brink of becoming a party to the conflict. In spite of the latest incidents, a Western official said that the war is at a near operational standstill, with neither side able to launch major offensives. But later on Friday, a Ukrainian official said that 2 civilians were wounded by Russian shelling of the Ukrainian communities neighboring the nuclear plant, the latest in a long string of such shelling accusations over the past weeks. And now they're keeping a close eye on this nuclear plant because obviously this could be a huge disaster. In fact, a senior official at the Ukrainian presidential office told reporters that the threat of an environmental catastrophe is on a global scale and remains due to the periodic shelling of the plant. And tensions have escalated even further after a car bombing outside Moscow on Saturday night, which took the life of the journalist Daria Dugina, and I hope I pronounced that right, was orchestrated and carried out, according to Russia, by Ukrainian secret services. Apparently, she was killed while returning from a conservative family festival held in the Moscow region. She was the daughter of an anti-Western author and political commentator, Alexander Dugin. Like her father, she was known for her vocal support of the Russian military operation in Ukraine. Now, of course, Ukraine has continued to deny that they had anything to do with this, but this certainly rises tensions between Russia and Ukraine. Now, with that being said, the Jerusalem Post is reporting that the Russian defense minister stated that they are mass producing Zircon missiles. He said that we have actually put it into service. This year, it will be documented. Now, on July 31st, the Russian president said that the hypersonic missile would be deployed in the coming month. 3 days prior, TASS specified that the Zircon would be deployed on surface ships as early as September. In addition, the production of the Kinzhal hypersonic missile would also continue. The KH-47M2 Kinzhal, or Dagger missile, is an air-launched weapon, whereas the new Zircon is a naval weapon. An air-to-ground version is also in development. Both hypersonic missiles are nuclear warhead capable. The Russian defense minister also announced at the Army 2022 forum contracts worth $500 billion rubles for items including the supply of the S-500 anti-aircraft missiles and the RS-28 Sarmat intercontinental ballistic missiles. So according to this report, Russia isn't slowing down not one bit. In fact, it looks like they are preparing.
Hey, what you think the Lord finna do with these missiles, man? What you think they just making them for show, man? They spending millions of dollars to make these missiles, man. What you think finna go down? World War III, man. Babylon is finna be destroyed, man. By millions, hundreds of millions of warheads, man. Repent. The kingdom of heaven is at hand, man. Repent, man.
For a much larger conflict. Now, in addition to that, the UK's top other ranked soldier has said that British troops must be ready to fight Russia and should prepare their families for the prospect of an extended deployment. His advice comes after the UK's new head of general staff said that the British
The Lord said he's gonna draw all your mighty men, man. And all you, hey, these Jakes over here in Babylon the Great, these so-called thugs and gangsters, these dope boys. Listen, man. Yeah, Esau needs you, man. What's the this guy? What they say? Uncle Sam wants you, man. Yeah, you ain't doing nothing, no way. Go fight for your country.
British forces must become capable of defeating Russia in battle. Writing for the latest issue of British Army Soldier magazine, Warrant Officer Paul Carney said that the Army is shaping itself to meet the threat from Russia and will be ready with the right equipment to play our part in deterring a future war in Europe. He continued that deterring in this case seemingly means deploying. I want us all to be physically fit for operations, and it is also important we prepare loved ones and families who often have the hardest role in our absence. My ask is that you have discussions about a potential deployment with them now. We could be out of contact for extended periods on tour. In the meanwhile, it's being reported that 2 U.S. Air Force B-52 bomber jets will fly over the Balkans later on Monday in a show of commitment to NATO allies. The U.S. Air Forces in Europe said in a statement that the purpose of each flyover is to demonstrate U.S. commitment and assurance to NATO allies and partners located in southeastern Europe. NATO allies are also sending ships and jets to bolster the alliance's eastern flank in response to.
It said B-52, and that's what they used to drop the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. A B-52. Man, they're proud of these devils, man.
The war in Ukraine. And with that said, I would like to move on and talk about South Korea in the United States. As I mentioned in our report at the End Times News Report that was released just yesterday with Susan Davis, South Korea and the United States will resume military
Bro,
exercises.
what's going
the
on?
largest since
Why does it say the U.S. and South Korea are staging their biggest military drills in years? For what? World War III, man. World War III. Let's read it here. In Revelation, let me read this in Habakkuk 1 and 5. It reads, Behold ye among the heathen and regard, talking to you Israelites, you so-called Negro, Latino, Native Americans, West Indians, and Haitians. Regard what's going on, man. Behold ye among the heathen and regard, and wonder marvelously. For I will work a work in your days, which you would not believe, though it be told to you. In Revelation 9 and 12, it reads, One woe is past, and behold, there come two woes more hereafter. Revelation 11:14. The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. What is this going on? Preparing for war, man. You don't got to believe it. Just keep living your life wickedly and watch what happens.
2017. The South Korean Defense Ministry claimed the Allies would stage 11 field training programs involving thousands of soldiers this summer. North Korea, however, called the joint drills a rehearsal for invasion and fired 2 cruise missiles from the West Coast last week when Washington and South Korea kicked off their preliminary training for the exercises. It goes on finally to report that North Korea has conducted a record number of missile tests this year, involving over 30 ballistic launches, including the country's first demonstrations of
You know
intercontinental.
how much money it costs to waste? It said over 30 ballistic missile tests. You know how much money it costs to waste missiles like that? It's not for a waste. They are they are making their missiles. They are advancing their missiles, man. Every time they are testing their missiles, the Lord got them putting their money into this military power, man. Advancing their weaponry, man. That they may be perfect. Because remember, it say, let me get it right here. In Isaiah, I think it was Isaiah, if I ain't mistaken. Let's see, Isaiah 47. Let's see. In Isaiah 47, I think it said that the destruction shall come upon Babylon in her perfection. Maybe it was in I'm gonna let this play. Let me find it.
Ballistic missiles in nearly 5 years. Now, as tensions heat up between North Korea, the United States, and South Korea, Japan considers deploying long-range missiles to counter China. The report goes on to read that Japan is considering the deployment of 1,000 long-range cruise missiles to boost its counterattack capability against China. Japan, which interprets its war-renouncing post-war constitution to mean that it may use its military only for self-defense, has recently stepped up its military spending and taken a more assertive strategy in recent years. But it has refrained from deploying long-range missiles. In the meanwhile, Chinese troops will travel to Russia to take part in joint military exercises led by the host and including India, Belarus, Mongolia, and other countries, according to China's defense ministry. The Chinese ministry also pointed out that China's participation in the joint exercises is unrelated to the current international and regional situation. Last month, Moscow announced plans to hold the Vostok East exercises from August 30th to September 5th, even as it wages this war with Ukraine. So very interesting news here, but not surprising. We have watched China and Russia get closer and closer over the years, and especially what's happening right now on the international community. This is expected. We see Russia collecting their allies, and we see the United States and NATO collecting their allies. And many are warning right now that the United States is on the brink of war, not only with Russia, but with China as well. In fact, Singapore's next PM has warned.
Hold on. What this old devil said? Even Kissinger warns the U.S. is at the edge of war as China sends troops to Russia. Hearing Kissinger, old devil. That devil's still alive. he beat out David Rockefeller. Ain't that something? Hey, this is Isaiah 47 in verse 9. It reads, But these two things shall come upon thee in a moment, in one day. The loss of children and widowhood, they shall come upon thee in their perfection for the multitude of thy sorceries and for the great abundance of thine enchantments. You see, it's so the Lord got them advancing their weaponry, their missiles to be perfect, man. Because the destruction of North America, Babylon the Great, will be in perfection, man.
War, not only with Russia, but with China as well. In fact, Singapore's next PM has warned the US and China are closer to war after Pelosi's Taiwan visit, American missile tests, and Beijing's
Well, this is a problem. China to send troops to Russia. Oh man, China to send troops to Russia for joint military exercise. This is a problem, man. And now you got Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia doing billion-dollar deals with China. And they doing deals with Russia with oil, man. The Lord is listen, man. Listen, man. Watch what's going on. Watch what's going on, man. This is getting serious, man. Things are heating up. And just because it ain't playing out to how we see it, we looking for it to happen. No, man. Things are happening. It's happening, man.
Military drills. He warned that there could be accidents with both sides displaying a show of force in the region. Singapore's future prime minister also stated that the United States and China are sleepwalking into this conflict. However, I don't think they're sleepwalking. I think their eyes are wide open as they continue to antagonize one another. So certainly a very serious situation there. And speaking of which, Breitbart has reported that Iran's general is threatening the UK and the US with immense naval power. The general stated that his forces are tasked with missions on the high seas. While addressing a gathering of the IRGC Navy commanders, the general went on to praise his naval forces as an evolving immense naval power in the Strait of Hormuz, the Persian Gulf, and beyond. He also stressed that the IRGC forces have brought Israel to its knees in the Persian Gulf, where Iran has imposed its will in the most beautiful manner possible, according to the general. Now, of course, is what I find very interesting about this headline, is that while they are threatening us and Israel, they still want to go along with the Iran nuclear deal. But according to Israeli officials, this deal will be even worse than the Obama-led 2015 accord. So I guess we're just going to have to wait and see what happens.
Now you see, Babylon the Great got to defend Israel from Iran. They are playing their role in defending Ukraine from Russia. And they trying to defend Taiwan from China, man. They are split up three ways. Their soldiers, okay, their military is not getting paid properly. Look at these veterans today, man. These veterans, most of these veterans that fought the wars and made it back, and these VA hospitals, they ain't taking care of these guys, man. They're not getting their proper money every month. They're not getting the proper medical care. Why? Because they just casualties of war and collateral damage, man. Esau uses you and throw you away, man. Just like he doing to the middle class now. Okay? Or these Edomites, these Glenn Becks, and these Dabu 7s, and all these guys, man, that's bringing out the information. This guy here. Okay? They're bringing out all this information because they are finding out that their government, the higher up, the one that's at the top of the pyramid, don't care about them, man. Hey, in the nation of Israel, when the kingdom of heaven is established, let's go back before. When King David was in rulership, hey, everybody ate, man, in Israel, man. All 12 tribes ate, man. Everybody ate, man. It wasn't no homeless people, man. Everybody ate, man.
In the meantime, I just have one last headline I'd like to share with you. And I'm not going to go into the entire report, but the Times of Israel's report that the IDF is on high alert near the northern border amid fears that Hezbollah may attempt to carry out an attack in order to sabotage talks between Israel and Lebanon on the maritime border dispute,
You see
with
that?
both sides nearing an agreement. So obviously, they don't want this to happen, and they're going to cause some trouble. Hopefully,
Hold on. But hold on, though. But that's supposed to be the kingdom of heaven. That's supposed to be the kingdom of heaven over there, right? Isaiah 26:10, it reads, let favor be showed to the wicked, yet will he not learn righteousness. In the land of uprightness will he deal unjustly, and will not behold the majesty of Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushua. Hold on. How will this plan out? Because those are heathens. And the Lord said, our land shall be trodden down to the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles are fulfilled, man. Let me come back to me, man. I got a couple more clips, man. We in it for the long run today. Check this out. Let's play this here. Why Argentina and Iran wants to join BRICS group. Check it out.
If you remember, a week ago, BRICS 2022 summit happened. It was hosted by China virtually, and it was also the 14th edition. So in this video, we're going to learn why Argentina and Iran wants to join BRICS group. As you already know, BRICS is the acronym given to the joint partnership of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. They are also the permanent members of this group. Now, apart from these permanent members, there are other countries who have interest towards joining this group. And every year, few countries express their interests, and they also get to attend the summit as a guest or an observer. This year, the observer countries were Algeria, Argentina, Cambodia, Egypt, Ethiopia, Fiji, Indonesia, Iran, Kazakhstan, Senegal, Uzbekistan, Malaysia, and Thailand. Among these countries,
you see it? And more nations are going to join to the BRICS, man. Okay? It's a observable countries, man. Because everybody see like, man, Russia don't care, man. They going in headlong. And this is what people need to see, man. They need to see men, soldiers, that's ready to die for what they believe in, man. So, the scriptures already said, Obadiah 1:7. Let's read it. Let's read it. Because remember, these countries are joined to Babylon the Great, man, through the UN. Okay? There's 193 nations joined to North America, Babylon the Great. Obadiah 1:7. All the men of that confederacy, not some. It say all the men of that confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee. There is none understanding in him. You see it? This is going to happen. The Lord say, let's get this in Jeremiah 50, in verse 9, it reads, for lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon an assembly of great nations from the north country, and they shall set themselves in array against her. From thence shall she be taken. Their arrows, their missiles shall be as a mighty expert man, none shall return in vain. Now the Lord said in Ezekiel 38, he told the Russians, he's telling the Russians, Ezekiel 38, reading the point. It say, verse 7, be thou prepared and prepare for thyself and all thy company, and it say they are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. So these nations seeing the Lord, man, the Lord putting the hooks in Russia, turning them back to that Soviet Union, that Cold War state, that Cold War mentality, and the other nations is with it, man. Because they see, man, America don't feel Russia, man. They need somebody that's going to lead, man. Okay? That's going to show their dominance. They are not afraid, man.
countries, Iran and Argentina have applied to join BRICS. And once their joining formalities are done, this group is going to expand from existing 5 nations to 7 nations and can potentially become another G7 grouping with different aims, objectives, and values. Now let's quickly understand why Argentina and Iran have applied for BRICS membership. And by the way, they have not yet received the membership. It is in the process. However, the main leaders of the group have almost agreed. Some last-minute possibilities are being explored. So anyhow, why did they apply? The first thing that you have to understand is that Iran has world's second largest gas reserves. And the second thing that you have to understand is that Iran's relationship with the West started declining right after the 1979 Iranian Revolution, when Ayatollah Khomeini's Shia Islamic ideology replaced Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi's secular monarchy. And as you know, if it is secular, that means it is backed by the West. So the 1979 Iranian Revolution damaged Iran's relationship with the West. And after that, the US Department of State has added Iran to the list of many state-sponsored terrorism, started imposing numerous sanctions on Iran for developing nuclear technology, and many more such things. I have a video called Iran's Nuclear Program. Watch that video. In that, I've explained everything in detail. If you're interested, the link of that video is in the top right corner. So anyhow, Iran's relationship with the West is not good. And Iran's nuclear weapons program is a threat to American interests. And that is why the United States and the European Union have done everything possible to destroy the Iranian economy by putting numerous sanctions. They have also placed Iran in FATF's blacklist since 2020. I mean, just think about it. Pakistan is in the grey list. India has tried everything to put Pakistan in the blacklist. But somehow the West has never taken this matter seriously. On the other hand, Iran is in the blacklist. Everyone knows, I don't need to say this, Pakistan is used by both United States and China from time to time. If a country can be used for XYZ reasons in exchange of money, then naturally their masters will not put them in the blacklist. They will put them in grey list so that not only they can be controlled, but they can also be used from time to time. So that is what is Pakistan's situation. But the same logic does not apply on Iran. Iran is like a bone in United States' throat. That is why Iran is in FATF's blacklist. And if at all any country is in the blacklist, then all kinds of export and import is banned for that country. Ultimately, the idea behind any kind of sanction is to create economic crisis so that you can force the country's leader and government to obey. Iran's economy has been crushed by the Western countries, and Iran has also many times appealed to the United States to suspend these restrictions. But America wants Iran to get rid of their nuclear weapons and open their facilities to international inspection, which Iran is not at all in favor of, because they simply don't trust the United States. Iran strongly feels that this way the United States will gain control of Iran's national interests. On one hand, Iran does not want to give in to United States demands. And on the other hand, United States is crushing Iranian economy by applying maximum pressure.
Make every summer adventure the destination with Honda, America's most fuel-efficient.
Pressure through sanctions. Here is a chart that shows Iran's economy is declining under various presidents. If you notice, Obama is a Democrat, Trump is a Republican. That means irrespective of which political party is in power, the United States deep state has a permanent fixed policy towards Iran, and that is to get rid of Iran's nuclear program. And watch that video I've told you. In that I've explained why Iran's nuclear program is a threat to American interests. I cannot discuss it here, otherwise this will be a never-ending video. So Iran's economy is in very bad shape. The only reason they are able to run their economy somehow is because Iran has world's second largest gas reserves, and I believe world's fourth largest oil reserves. Iran sells huge quantity of oil illegally. Actually, the word illegal is not a right word if you think from Iran's
You see,
perspective.
that's why it makes sense when the Lord said, "Be a guard to these nations, man." The Lord told Russia to be a guard to these nations, man. Okay? Though Russia had this, they still weak, man. Okay? But join to Russia and China, man. And Babylon the Great is through.
Because that country has to survive somehow and they have to do everything despite having numerous sanctions. They can't sit and rot. So Iran exports oil despite US sanctions. They export it to countries like China, India, and Turkey. Iran also exports oil to its nearby countries like Iraq, Syria. Even Pakistan gets it. As you know, Iran shares border with Pakistan near Balochistan. Oil smuggling in this part of the world is a common thing. So anyhow, this is how Iran's economy is breathing. Otherwise, the sanctions that have been put by the Western countries have pretty much crushed the Iranian economy. Hence, for Iran, it becomes an even more important decision to be part of 5 powerful economies. That will not only give Iran an international platform to present their regional and economic issues, but it will also help Iran become an important part of a powerful emerging market, which is the only alternative to the Western market. If you look at the entire BRICS grouping, China is by far the largest economy in the BRICS grouping, accounting for more than 70% of the group's collective 27.5 trillion economic strength. India accounts for about 13%. Russia and Brazil represents about 7% each, and the remaining is South Africa. BRICS grouping also accounts for more than 40% of the world's population and about 26% of the global economy. As you can see, it is clearly the next alternative to the combined Western market. And when Iran joins officially, when all the paperwork is done, Iran will turn out to be an important country in this BRICS grouping to provide the much needed energy because it has world's second largest gas reserves and fourth largest oil reserves. And furthermore, Iran can provide the land route to Central Asia and then Russia. The BRICS grouping has everything to gain by accepting Iran. Similarly, even Iranian economy needs an alternative emerging market to revive their economy, which is in critical shape. Now, coming to Argentina, if you study the Argentina government's foreign policy, it is not very clear. things are very unpredictable when it comes to Argentina's foreign policy because their position on several geopolitical aspects are not clear. As you know, Argentina is one of the largest economy of Latin America, and it is also considered as the most stable democracy in that region. Even then, Argentina has struggled with political and financial crisis in the last 10 years. And by the way, Argentina is also an important trading partner of the United States, European Union, and China. But US still remains Latin America's top trading partner. In fact, China is a growing influence in Latin America. Over the last 20 years, China has developed close economic and security ties with many Latin American countries. Here's a map
Hey, just to throw this out there too. We got a brother over there in Bolivia, man. GMS Bolivia. Subscribe to that brother channel, man.
in this you can see. And obviously, if a Latin America country has a partnership with both United States as well as China, then things are not going to be smooth. And if you look at the politics of Argentina, Alberto Fernandez is the president, and he runs a coalition government by the name Everyone's Front. In Latin, it is called Frente de Todos. In general, if I have to say, Argentina currently has a leftist government. So naturally, it does have certain amount of interference of the American politics. Plus, it is not a hidden fact. United States has intervened hundreds of times in the affairs of the Latin American countries. However, in recent times, it has been observed that Argentina has been turning east towards China for its economic and developmental needs. In fact, it was China who invited the Argentinian president to attend the BRICS summit. Economically, we do understand what's going on in Argentina, but
You see it, man. You see it. I got one more. I got actually 2 more clips here. This is all news and prophecy, man. Must be allowed to be played, man. So let me get this here. This is BRICS Global Reserve Currency. Check this out. It's on the 6 minutes.
We're undoubtedly shocked by how quickly the West and its allies imposed sanctions on Russia's foreign exchange reserves, which were reduced by around half. The Central Bank of Russia and several countries like China basically admitted and clearly noticed how quickly and stealthily the U.S. Treasury moved during the period. As a move to address the perceived U.S. hegemony of the IMF, Russia is ready to develop new global reserve currency alongside China and other BRICS nations in a potential challenge to the dominance of the U.S. dollar. This chess move will allow BRICS to build their sphere of influence and unit of currency within that sphere. Does BRICS having its reserve currency threaten the West and the US dollar's hegemony? And what is the likelihood of its success as a global reserve currency? Let's find out. At a meeting in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire in 1944, 44 countries agreed to fix their currencies to the dollar, which in turn was fixed to gold at a $35 an ounce. The US kept the dollar price of gold fixed and adjusted the supply of dollars to maintain confidence in future gold convertibility. Yet by 1970, the rest of the industrialized world had accumulated such a large dollar holdings that the US did not have sufficient gold to credibly keep maintaining convertibility. Thus, President Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard in August of 1971. The value of the dollar then plummeted relative to other currencies on global exchanges. To prop it up, Nixon and Secretary of State Henry Kissinger made a deal with Saudi Arabia and the OPEC countries that OPEC would sell oil only in dollars and that the dollars would be deposited in Wall Street and City of London banks. In return, the U.S. would defend the OPEC countries militarily. Now, economists have been researching the possibility of de-dollarizing the world economy for a while. Most agreed that the question was not if would happen, but when. Expanding U.S. sanctions are causing a swift shift in the world's currency markets, jeopardizing the dollar's hegemony. And the most recent round of U.S. sanctions against Russia might be the turning point, since many nations would suffer severe economic losses from the sanctions. We see central banks attempting to diversify their holdings by including conventional assets like the Swedish krona and the South Korean won, and non-traditional ones like the yuan. Recently, at one of the BRICS forums, President Putin announced that Russia, alongside China and other BRICS nations, was getting ready to launch a new global reserve currency made up of a basket of BRICS currencies. If successful, such a reserve currency would directly threaten the currently dominant US dollar. President Vladimir Putin signaled the new reserve currency would be based on a basket of currencies from the group's members, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Also, Iran, which holds the world's second largest gas reserves, has applied to join BRICS group. Does the BRICS reserve system stand a chance against the greenback? When measured for purchasing power parity, the BRICS currently account for around 31.5% of global GDP. This increases to 33% of global GDP when Iran and Argentina are included. This is a sizable potential trading bloc, and 33% of the world's GDP more than suffices to support a reserve currency. Although BRICS is not a reserve currency in an actual sense, but an alternative to the IMF's special drawing right SDR. The SDR by the IMF is not a currency, but rather a pool of claims on major reserve currencies, including the dollar, euro, pound, yen, and its newest addition, the renminbi. For now, the presumption is that the BRICS reserve basket will comprise real, rubles, rupees, renminbi, and rand. However, there is a possibility that the BRICS basket currency would draw reserves not just from the group's members, but also from nations currently inside its sphere of influence. These include the Middle Eastern and South Asian countries. In addition, there's huge room for cooperation between the nations. Together, the enlarged BRICS nations presently account for around 26% of the world's oil production and 50% of the production of the iron ore needed to produce the steel. Approximately 40% of the world's corn and 46% of the world's wheat are produced there. If all of them were transacted in the new reserve currency, it would right away establish itself as a pillar of the global economy. Let's imagine what that would look like if BRICS launched its reserve currency. That would be a mega disaster for the US dollar, the currency of a service-based economy that produces very little. While most analysts believe there is a chance for the BRICS system, OANA senior market analyst Jeff Haley seems to have a different opinion according to a Business Insider report. Jeff believes there is no foreseeable threat to the dominance of the US dollar in the near future. It is the currency of the largest economy used in the world's largest and deepest capital markets and is freely convertible. Unlike 4 of the 5 currencies in the BRICS, which are managed currencies, in China's case, the yuan is not convertible and is managed against a basket of currencies, of which the US dollar has the largest weight. There's also a question of conversion, whether there are restrictions on how a currency is traded on the foreign exchange market. For example, those who want to trade high amounts of India's rupee, for instance, must get approval first. So Jeff Haley believes while investors might be concerned about this apparent fresh threat to dollar dominance, these factors suggest the greenback won't face losing its pole position anytime soon. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of...
So guess what the end goal is? The end goal of all this is this. Let me play this clip and we'll close up. There's an end goal to all this, man. To all this madness, to all these distractions, there's an end goal. Check this out. Now, the elder brother from Alabama, Avraham, put this up. His channel, Mysteries of the Kingdom, the trilogy. Subscribe to the channel if you ain't subscribed. So check this out.
Who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he, as God, sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God.
The only thing God managed to create are organic beings. All these trees and giraffes and humans, they're just organic. But we are now trying to create inorganic entities, inorganic life forms, cyborgs, artificial intelligence, and so forth. If we succeed, and there is a very good chance we will, then very soon we will be beyond the God of the Bible.
You're enhancing all the capabilities of your entire neural network.
You hear the pride of these devils, man? That nigga said we'll be far advanced to God of the Bible. Hold on.
We'll be beyond the God of the Bible.
You're enhancing all the capabilities of your entire neural network.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Bro, we're gonna be robots. We're gonna be cyber people.
Can you imagine that in 10 years when we are sitting here, we have an implant in our brains, and I can immediately feel, because you all will have implants.
There are people, like Elon Musk, who are trying to work on closed loop systems where the read of the brain and the input into the brain all happens within the brain in an implant.
We're going to put these just really gateways. This is a gateway to the cloud. We're going to put gateways to the cloud in our brains.
I've often thought about or talked about sort of three phases to, let's call it, how technology and biology sort of merge. And something I've been talking about for some time. I think there's sort of three phases. The first phase that we're in today is the wearable phase. We adorn ourselves with technology. And for the most part, it's for managing activity. That will change as the sensors become more sophisticated. We'll monitor things like glucose levels and heart rate, and the heart rate of a fetus, and a pregnant mother. The sensors will only get more and more sophisticated and will help with disease prevention and so on. So today we're sort of in the wearable phase. Where I believe we go next is in the embeddable phase.
It's at the end, what the fourth industrial revolution will lead to is a fusion of our physical, our digital, and our biological identities.
He disappointeth the devices of the crafty, so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. When he is about to fill his belly, God shall cast the fury of his wrath upon him, and shall rain it upon him while he is eating.
Hey, and this guy, if you don't know if you ever saw the movie Total Recall, right?
Can you imagine that in 10 years when we are sitting here, we have an implant in our brains, and I can immediately feel, because you all will have implants.
There are people.
This movie Total Recall, right? This guy here, Klaus Schwab. So in the movie Total Recall, the 2012 one with Colin Farrell, I don't know if you ever saw it, but they had the phone in their hand, man, like this clip here. The phone was in their hand, and one of the guys that was standing by when they were trying to catch him, he said, "Man, where can I get one of those?"
Organic life forms, cyborgs,
Right
artificial intelligence, and
See
so
it? It's gonna be all through the MOTB, man. On that movie Total Recall. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. 2012 with Colin Farrell. He had and then chick, she opened her hand up, punched on the numbers, and put her phone and put her hand to her ear, man. Okay? That's these devils, man. Talking about what this devil said.
forward. If we succeed, and there is a very good chance we will, then very soon we will be beyond the God of the Bible.
You see that? We will be beyond the God of the Bible. What does these devils say? Let's get it here. 2 precepts and I'm going to close. Isaiah. This is Isaiah 14 and verse 13 it reads, "For thou hast said in thy heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God, I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north." And they do control religion. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High, right? In Ezekiel 28, it reads, verse 6, "Therefore thus saith the Lord, because thou hast set thy heart as the heart of God, behold, therefore will I bring strangers upon thee, the terrible of the nations, and they shall draw their swords against thy beauty, against the beauty of thy wisdom, and they shall defy thy brightness. They shall bring thee down to the pit, and thou shalt die the deaths of them that are slain in the midst of the seas. Wilt thou yet say before him that slayeth thee, I am God? But thou shalt be a man and no God in the hand of him that slayeth thee. One more here in 2 Thessalonians, because these devils playing, they saying that they are the Lord, they gods, man. 2 Thessalonians 2:4, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. You see? Let's play one more time.
A good chance we will. Then very soon we will be beyond the God of the Bible.
You see? That's these devils, man. They will be beyond the God of the Bible, man. That's crazy. For anybody to think that they can ever be beyond the God of the Bible, that is madness, man. But Lord wills to edifying. Got to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shah, Bahashem Rikah Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elder bishops and elders of great millstone who teach well. For the apostles and elders of all Israel, whether concepted or not. And a sincere salutation to all the Akim pushing this truth and believing this truth. Throughout the four ends of the earth, the entire world, waking up the hopeful elect. Shalom to the Akwa through our listening and learning. You few sisters who are listening and learning. Lord is edifying. Till next time I say Shalom. Wa Abba for tuning in. May you help by Shema Shah continue blessing your houses. Stay prayed up. The waterfall your precepts. Shalom.